Hey, what's up, guys? Just back with another tournament report. Just came back from a tournament today. It wasn't a very big tournament, it was just a small eight-man tournament. And yeah, just kind of here to give my report since I'm back home. I'm able to play Modern again. I'm able to do some of these videos. I'm not gonna really have my real life deck in front of me 'cause it's just too distracting, I think, and I don't really have anything to show. So I'm just gonna have this sort of layout here and kind of show you what cards I put in or used, stuff like that. And this is in the what you see on the screen is the exact replicate of my actual real life deck. So you ever see it in real life, this is what it looks like. So um, it's card for card. Yeah. So basically, yeah, it's a played against three different decks. I played against Belcher, Oops, No Spell, or All Spell combo deck, and a Yorion Bant control deck, and a Jeski control deck. So basically, two control decks and a combo deck. So yeah, I unfortunately did not go undefeated. I did lose one game of the three, and I think I um would have went undefeated if I didn't screw up against the Oops no spell deck. And I'll be real honest, it's my first time playing against that combo deck, and I really wasn't for sure knowing what it was doing. But I know no, I know what it does now, and so if I were to play it in the future, I definitely would play better against it. It's just my first time playing it, so I really had no idea what to expect, or how to outplay it, and so I did lose to the Belcher deck, but I did win my other two matchups. So basically, game one, he goes Belcher. But Belcher never actually resolves, but what actually got me was the Bell lose trade spy, I think is what it's called. Basically mills his whole deck, and then I think he mills his whole deck and does Sword of the Meek combo with uh, Vengevine and the 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 other Salvage Titan. So he did that on top of the Creeping Chill. So game one, I think I would have won if I didn't tap out. Game one, I um I tapped out for to try to get it to fair because I think I was mana stuck or something like that. I was trying to draw a card, so I wasn't sure what he was doing. But he couldn't resolve Belcher, but he did play the spy, which got me. I did have a Kyle's Guile in hand. If I knew that was gonna happen, I would have just Kyle Guile and that would be game right there. So I lost game one. Game two, I go off. I start off pretty strong. He has a mulligan. I think he was playing the 80 the Yorion version of the deck. So it was Belcher, no lands, and then the Savage Titan combo with the Sword of the Meek and stuff like that. And so game two, I beat him. I think I resolved Big to Fairy. I get my counter spells up. He wasn't resolving anything. As much as he tried, he couldn't really get there. Game three, though, I did mess up again. I think I tapped out again, and then I wasn't expecting him to do it again, but he did just top deck a the spy again, and then did the same thing to me again. So um, I think I was just being greedy. I think I should have just left my mana up, even though I wasn't drawing lands. I was trying to draw another land. So yeah, both game one and two, I was stuck on either two or three lands, and it just I wanted to try to push my lands and basically die to the combo because I was tapped out. So that was unfortunate. Why I sided against him? I think I just sided Dovin's Veto and Kai's Guiled and a couple of my like Rest in Peace, Sanctifier, any kind of graveyard hate that in case he did get the spy out, uh, he would have done it. Game three, I did have Sanctifier in my hand, but unfortunately, I didn't have double white. I kind of screwed myself in that one too, because instead of getting my fetch my land, I just fetched for a basic land rather than I should have went for a shock land, but I did not go for a shock land, and I did not have double white to play the Sanctifier, so I messed up on there. So game three was just it was just me learning the deck, and unfortunately just didn't know how to play against it, so I played incorrectly against the Belcher combo and lost um, my first round. Round two, I played against Jeski Control, and I went 2-0 to him. Um, Not much to say. Like, it was kind of just us trying to resolve Teferi mostly. Even when he resolved the Teferi, I was still able to beat him. I think it was just like the Snapcasters, and my Teferis. Somehow I was just outvaluing him. Like, I guess, yeah, I wasn't too sure what exactly he did. Game two, he did surgical extraction my counter spell, but he was already down so many cards, and like it didn't matter. I was up so many cards. I just kept Archmage Charm, drawing two, a Memory Deluge a few times here. I think I did resolve one of my big Teferis or my small ones, and yeah, just kind of control didn't quite keep up with my deck. What I sided against just kind of control, I think I sided Dovin's Veto, and I think that was it really. Dovin's Veto and maybe another Kai's Guile because I was just trying to push my advantage with the tokens, to try to beat him down, and yeah, didn't. Not, I can't recall anything crazy happening there, but yeah, it was a fairly quick, easy game, I think. Well, I wouldn't say easy, but I would say it wasn't as difficult. I think when he did resolve Teferi or something like that, I had either I think a Celestial or a Hall here, and I just kind of beat him down with that. So it wasn't too bad. He did have Cast and Arnvale, and he was playing Jeskai Stoneblade. So he did have Mystic Forge and some equipment items and stuff like that, and he was trying to equip the Stone Blade and then the Germ and I think sort of Fire and Ice stuff like that. It just didn't do anything against me because namely my entire deck can fight against that. Like if he goes Germ, I just Prismatic Ending or I Fatal Push or whatever. He goes tries to equip one of his tokens with it. I think he equipped a Fire and Ice to one of his Castle Arendelle tokens, but I think I just fatal pushed that thing. So like he's just like, oh, okay. And yeah, so he wasn't doing too much. He did side in. I think he said he sided in Sanctifier against me, but I didn't think Sanctifier would have done much against me either, cause I don't. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to fatal push it per se, but that is the only real card. Like I can still Damnation overload it. I can still Prismatic Ending it. I can still Kai's Guile. So I don't think that really did anything. I don't think he cited any graveyard hate against me or anything like that. So I kept my Snapcasters in, and just yeah, just I think outvalued him and won from there. He did play, I think, Fire and Ice and another card that was similar to Memory Deluge. You look at the top four, draw one, and it has flashback. But I don't think it really did too much to push him ahead. I think he also played Wandering Mind also, but that didn't really do anything either. Yeah, I mean it was kind of a standard Jeskai control deck, I would say, but it didn't seem to could play against me. So yeah, too old. Game three, play against a Yorion Bant control deck. That was interesting. Game one, I kind of kept a greedy hand. I had like 5 lands and like a Kai's Guile and something else. So game one goes pretty badly for me. Well, I think I kind of flooded out and tried to drop it to Fairy, but I think he had like Force of Negation, and he forced me, and he was drawing pretty hot. So, and I was drawing I think a lot of lands. So he ended up getting like Baby Teferi out and Big Teferi, and he eventually got Jace out, and I just scooped up game one. He wasn't really like close to winning, but because he has like 3 Planeswalker to my like 3 lands in hand, I was just like whatever. I'm just gonna scoop it up, save some time, go to game two. Game two, I opt to go first. He went first that game, I think, or whatever. I go first, and I draw pretty badly. I think I get like 2 lands or something like that. I had 2 lands and like 2 Snapcasters. What I sided in against him because he was playing Bant. I was debating Aether Gust, but I was like, stuff that I would hit with Aether Gust wasn't really gonna matter too much. Like, yeah, I could hit Budding Growth, maybe a Quaddle or something like that. Um, I think he also played Endurance and stuff, maybe. But I guess it didn't matter too much. I did not put this in. I think I put in Arvin Mind Sensor, and I'll explain why. So I put in Arvin Mind Sensor. I think I put in for sure Dovin's Veto and maybe a Kai's Guy or something like that. Anyways, I think what I took out was I think out Damnation and Fatal Pushes and um something else. I don't quite remember. Anyways, so you know I don't want to mulligan because I'm already down the card. He has Yorion and stuff. So I go for the first like 2 or 3 turns. I just hard casted Snapcaster. I legit just turn 2 snap, turn 3 I didn't draw land, snapped again, and I just kept beating him down with the snap. Eventually, he was able to like cast an endurance out to try to block one of my snaps. I think I finally get a Teferi or a third land or something, bounce back the endurance, attack again with the snap, and we kind of go at it for a little bit, like that, and eventually get out like a mind sensor, um, and I finally started picking up some steam with like some counter spells. I think I picked up a one Archmage Charm, which I drew two, and he didn't counter it, so I drew, and I picked up some steam, and I was able to beat him, despite being like landlocked at 2 lands for like 3 or 4 turns. Like 3 turns, I think three turns. I just had like 2 lands with like 2 snapcasters on board. Couldn't even cast Teferi, couldn't cast anything. But yeah, game two, I was able to beat him. Game three, he wants me to go first because I think he wants to push the card advantage, which is fine. I go. Um, I think I keep like a 3 land hand with like 2 Teferis and I think either an opt or prismatic ending, something like that. So yeah, I keep we keep going back and forth. I keep dropping to fairies. He counters one, drop another one, and we just keep doing that. Like because he's 80 cards. In my head, I think he's unlikely to drop his Teferi versus me. I'm more likely just to be able to draw my Teferis a lot more earlier than he can. In a control matchup, like yeah, whoever resolves Baby Teferi usually wins. But the way I was playing, like I was playing really aggressive. I was dropping creatures. I was dropping mine Iron Sensor just to apply pressure. Both that and Snapcaster. And yeah, I think he ends up like spending several turns trying to castle Vantress to try to draw something. I think he was kind of flooding out, where I was just kind of beating him down with a Kaya's token, Arch Snapcaster, and Mind Sensor. So the reason why I decided Mind Sensor in, because knowing if they do play a Teferi or something, if you can stick 1 or 2 creatures on the board, you can combat Teferi pretty well, and that's what I did. I just snapped in the Snapcaster or snapped in the Mind Sensor just so I have a creature on board so I can combat Teferi. He did, I think, he eventually did drop a Teferi on me. And I was able to, he bounced back one of my creatures and I still killed it. So it wasn't like, I had 2 creatures, so he had to, like, he couldn't deal with both my creatures. He couldn't bounce back the snap or, and dealt with the other creature, which was my Arvin Mind Sensor. That's what the strategy was just to overwhelm him with as many creatures as I could. I could have played Sanctifier and Vic too if I wanted to, but it's Bant control, so like the rest of Sanctifier's effect were kind of useless per se. So I didn't bother with Sanctifier, but I did put in the Arbor Mind Sensor as a flyer, a 2/1, and in case he did fetch some lands, but for the most part, I think he just kind of hard played most of his lands. He did have Prismatic Vista, a couple things like that. Um, Eventually, he starts casting endurance, but he doesn't shuffle my grave back into my deck because at this point already I had like 2 or 3 Teferi, baby Teferis in the graveyard, and I don't think he wanted to shuffle that back because if I he shuffles that back and I crack a land or something, I can draw baby Teferis again, and he's gonna have to deal with the Teferis again because I think he kept trying to prismatic ending. I think he counterspelled a bunch of stuff to try to get rid of the Teferis. He cast endurance and he just kind of shuffled it back himself. At one point, he goes endurance into in the Yorion, so he spends 8 mana to have both of those. I go my turn. I go, um, yeah, I go. I have what? six. I was a couple lands behind. I was lands like he had a lot of lands. I think he had like he had 8 lands compared to my 6. So what I did was I go Prismatic Ending the Endurance for 3, and then I go Kaya's Guile the Yorion for, and then I had Snap, and then I guess another Mind Sensor and something else, and I just kept beating him down, and he was down to like maybe 6 or 5 health at this point, and not too much left, and unless he had a board wipe, which I doubt he had, he couldn't really deal with my like 3 or 4 creatures I had on the board. At the end of the game, he was talking to me about it, and he was like, "Wow, like he didn't realize." Um, I played a bunch of creatures that I just kept casting. I think he one time tried a Solitude, but I just countered his Solitude to keep my Snap safe. Um, yeah, like he tried to hard cast Solitude to, I think, kill my Snapcaster or something like that. But I just countered it, and he didn't have a counter spell for my counter. And so he played 4 Dovin's Veto though. He sided in 4 Dovin's Veto and a bunch of other stuff, which is fine. And he has Force of Negation, which is fine. I mean, he has more counter spells than I did. I took out my counter spells to play a bunch of creatures, and I think that was his issue. Is like when I was playing Snapcaster and I was playing Mind Sensor, he had Force of Negation and Dovin's Veto, which he couldn't counter any of it, and I just kind of beat him down with the creatures. And if he put any planeswalkers on the board, like a Jace or a Teferi, if he couldn't deal with the rest of my creatures, it was bye bye for him. Like he talked about it. He said he should have prismatic ending one of the Snapcasters a lot earlier, but he was holding out, thinking that his Teferi and stuff like that would be safe because he had counter spells and stuff, which makes sense. But he ended up losing a lot of tempo because he didn't get rid of my Snapcaster, because he didn't get rid of like my Mind Arms, my Arvin Mind Sensor here. I ended up controlling the board, and I'm pretty sure he took out all of his Supreme Verdicts. He took out all the creature removal. I mean, Endurance was good. I mean, Endurance. I think he never shuffled any of my cards in my graveyard back. I was always able to resolve like the Snapcaster and stuff like that. Um, just because the nature of my graveyard, I think he wanted to avoid that, and so I don't know. Like every time I knew he had endurance, I always pressed the endurance by hard casting the Teferi, and he would have to hard cast or play the endurance in response to Teferi. Now we just bounce back the endurance with Teferi and then draw a card and attack over it. So he kept trying to blink in endurance to try to deal with Teferi, but it never like worked out really well. Um, and then if he did just hard play the endurance during his turn and didn't shuffle my deck back, then I would Snapcaster right after that. So yeah, it worked out well for me. I think the fact that he was playing Yorion, his draw variance was a lot higher than mine's, and so like both game 2 and 3, my hands were better because I was drawing like Archmage Charms, I was drawing Deluge, I was drawing a lot of draw cards, and that made me a bigger threat because I was able to draw cards and then get my threats out on board. I didn't really, not really able to resolve the Teferi or even the big ones. I don't think I ever was able to cast big Teferi against him or the Jace, but because I had so many creatures on the board and dealing so much damage to him, he couldn't quite deal with my board. I was expecting a Quaddle or something to trump block a Snapcaster, or he did have some Snowlands, but I never saw any of them, so I just assumed he never drew any of it. I think he just drew all he really drew was a lot of Endurances and Solitudes, and he drew some Teferis, he drew some Abundant Growth, stuff like that, which is good, but I guess my deck kind of outvalue him in terms of the creature, and just kind of running it over. Um, yeah, his creatures I wasn't too scared of any of his creatures. I had Kaya's Guile and basically Prismatic Ending and stuff like that. I was able to deal with all of his creature based threats and nothing too crazy there. So yeah, yeah. So that's basically how the tournament went. I best 2 control decks and lost to a combo deck. Would have won against the combo deck if I played better and if I knew what I was doing. Next time I do play against Belcher, I think I have an idea of how to play against them and what to expect in that particular matchup. and be better prepared. So that's it. I will probably head to another tournament tomorrow and play again, and we'll see how this deck does. I so far I've liked the deck. Like there's certain matchups where I will side a lot of graveyard hate and stuff like that. You know, you need graveyard hate as early as possible to win those matchups. And there's certain other decks where I don't really um don't. Sorry about this one. That's just my Facebook friends. We give each other random names, and it's just kind of an inside joke. But no, none of my friends are racist or anything like that. We're all pretty cool with everyone. We're pretty culturally diverse, I would say. So don't mind that little Facebook notification. We definitely aren't racist or anything like that. So but yeah, so yeah, I'll go head out tomorrow, play another game, and hopefully I'll have some other good battle reports. So I hope you guys enjoy just listening to me talk. See you guys next time.